Driving, proud to be supported by Diamond Bright, protecting, cleaning and caring for the Furious fleet and for yours with 10% off using code FD10. Follow the links in the description below. Hello and welcome to Furious Driving, and this, as I'm sure you know, is my 1973 Rover P6 V8, no longer a 3005, now a 4006. And in this video we're going to go through a few more of the many little snags that are stopping this car from being on the road. We're getting there fast now, almost-ish, well, getting there slowly. We're working through the problems on an as and when basis, basically. As you know, it's living outside at the moment. That means it's under a cover, and that means if it's about to start raining, I've got to put the cover back on it because I don't want to be covering it up wet, which means in the current weather situation, it means it doesn't get uncovered quite as much as I would like. So there's often a couple of days gap between doing a small amount of work. But we left the last video with a number of tasks waiting to be taken care of. There is the crank pulley, which is slopping backwards and forwards. There is the fact it won't go into neutral. Well, the gear selector is selecting the wrong things. You saw in the video when we started and ran it briefly, when I revved it in neutral, the car was creeping forwards, which is very dangerous. Not a good thing at all. There are various things which are scattered around the car and the boot, which should be in the engine bay, and we can try and get a few more of those back in there. One thing I was looking at in the last video was this finger guard for the fan, which lives on top of the radiator. I'd sanded it back, I was undercoating it and satin blacking it, and now it's done. And it looks rather splendid. So as soon as the radiator goes back in there, I can put that back on there as well for a little finishing touch, which does need a new sticker actually. I did have a photo of what that looks like, so I'll acquire one of those. Of course, the radiator needs to go back first, and so does the fan. Now, I will just say, as we get into this video, I'm not quite sure how long it's going to be because I want to put a video out today. It's Monday and I didn't do anything over the weekend video-wise, so we've got to have a video tonight. However, yesterday I was fiddling up with that roof and I put a screwdriver through my thumb, and it really, really hurts. I mean, even just adjusting the tripod for the camera is a painful effort. So I'm going to get as much done as I possibly can, but I'm not guaranteeing it'll be a very long video, but we'll do what I can. Now, the first of today's little puzzles, as the rain in fact begins to fall and I've taken the cover off the car, is the crank pulley. It doesn't do anything involving holding the crank into the engine, it's just purely here to drive the auxiliary drive belts and that kind of stuff. However, the problem I faced in the last episode is that the length of the crank shaft from the 4.6 is slightly longer than the length of the nose and the timing cover of the 3.5 litres. And that meant that this slides back and forth. My initial solution, before I fully understood the problem, was to go and buy a different washer to sit underneath the bolt, thinking that would then solve the problem. But it didn't, it still slid just as much. The problem was that there's like a bell shape inside of a bell inside here. And so what I needed was in fact spacers. So I've brought some copper spacers which I can push inside there once this is on the thing, and that hopefully will hold this in the right place, and so then it won't slide around. Let's see if that works. Right, so first of all we've got a positioning peg thingamajiggic on there, which will then slide this over, gets in the right place. Okay, that's back as far as it needs to go. Now we can then slide these washers over the centre of it, over the shaft of the crankshaft, until we've built it up flat against. There we go. And I did buy a couple of spares just on the off chance that they weren't big enough, and then that should jonk into there. Ugga dugga to spec. Yeah, I reckon that's not going anywhere now. So we've got one of our issues sorted. That means I'm going to put the radiator back and refill both the radiator and the transmission, because that's now devoid of any of, I'd say, the correct fluid, just any fluid. But also, while I've got this space open of stuff, I might have another go at refitting the power steering pump as well, because now the pulley's in the right place. I might actually be able to get those wheels to line up as they were supposed to, which is what I could never make it do before. Maybe we don't need power steering. Maybe it's a more pure thing not to have power steering. I'm going to go with that if I can't make it work. The next thing on our list of show and tell, which is this. This is the power steering pump, which I've never been able to get to line up in the right position, because it can go a number of ways around with these double brackets down here. But lining it up now on here, it would appear that because the belt goes behind here, it's like a really weird route behind there down to the pulley down there, we might actually be able to make this thing line up at last, which would be a major step forward. Just need to see if any of the belts we've got in the garage will actually fit. These are just random ones that left over from stuff. Now I'm going to check the book for this, but there's no clearance between the water pump pulley and the crank pulley. Like there's zero at all. So it looks like you have to take one of those off, and in fact the timing mark thing as well, to get the belt on. In fact, you might even need to take this bracket off as well, because this is a bizarre little route it seems to take. The pulley would be up here on this far side of this bracket here, through this gap in the back of there, which does make it very entertaining to fit. But yeah, I think you have to take the crank pulley off in order to mount it, because there, looking through the gap just there, you can see the rearward pulley through this little gap, which is very curious. Now I was just looking at this whole situation, sort of putting the power steering pump in different places, and I thought, well, I wonder if the fan actually clears that. And the answer is, even when it's pushed over to the far right hand side of its travel, no, it doesn't. So who knows how this stupid thing is meant to be orientated, or where it's going to go. Right, next on my to-do list is this gear selector, because this currently is in what should be neutral, but it took two of us pushing very hard downhill to move this car back into this parking bay when I towed it forward yesterday. So that is not right. And what that means we've got to do is get underneath the car, obviously jack it up first, find neutral on the gear selector on the side of the Borg Warner gearbox itself, move the selector into neutral obviously, and then we can adjust the gear linkage little connector rods. They've got turny screw things, adjust them until the neutral is on the gear selector in the car. Now, one of the many hilariously amusing things about working on a P6 is that there's virtually nowhere to jack the damn thing up, for one thing. Secondly, the suspension travel is immense, it's insane. So this is a high lift jack which will put most things pretty much in the sky, and because there's nowhere to put an axle stand safely, I was hoping rather to put the ramps underneath those wheels, but I've not even got close to lifting this car high enough. So that is set in the neutral position. It goes up for park and carries on down for the other gears. So I'm going to get inside the car, move the gear selector, and see if we can see it moving. Starting from horizontal, we're in neutral. All the way forward and up, that's park. Down one click to reverse, and back to neutral. So it all looks like it's going into the right places. Now, something I have just noticed is that this has got a flat cammed side on the side of the thread, which means this has to move correctly. But I've also just noticed this is only finger tight, so I'm wondering now if in fact this isn't a badly adjusted adjuster rod. It is actually that it's just slopping around and not moving the cam into the gearbox enough. So what I'm now thinking is perhaps the reason it wasn't selecting a gear or not selecting a gear was because there's too much slop, because that was undone. This thing up here is the sump for the gearbox. If I drain this out and refill it with fresh fluid and top it off properly once the engine is running, maybe we'll be able to get that sorted. Of course, I can't buy any at the moment because no one sells ATFG locally. I've got to mail order it. So let's put the thing into neutral and see if I can actually push it now. Come on. Move, you stupid heavy lump of... Come on, just move. Right, I've tried every position on that gear selector and none of them want to move, which means there is no neutral in this gearbox. Very strange. Now, one of the many distractions that's going on in this project is the bottom of this little panel here, which sits above front valance, because it's full of grot and horribleness and the paint has been taken off by, well, years and years of stuff. So we're going to soak it with some VHT rust converter and make the thing look an awful lot nicer and not be rusty. Power steering pump is back out. Fan is back on, and when I find the other two of these bolts, I'll put them in as well. I've just discovered this, which I was thinking, what on earth is this length of tubing? And it is, of course, the windscreen washer pipe, so I'm going to quickly refit that as well, because it's just one more thing off the list. I realise this is fairly low priority, but it does need doing. And down to that, so it's just one more thing taken care of. Now the next thing I'll look at is either the coil or the fuel pump needs to move, because people have said variously in the comments that first of all the fuel pump is the wrong way up. Now the thing is, this has been this way up since the 1990s and it's never given me a problem. However, it is directly above where the coil is mounted, which potentially could be a problem. So I'm going to move the coil over into here. Now I did have a flamethrower for this, a flamethrower coil for this as well. But when the car wasn't starting, I took it out and put this one on instead. I don't know if the flamethrower is actually any better. It's the Power Spark one. It's supposed to be very good indeed. Right, so let's move this thing somewhere less obtrusive. Now we've got a bit where there's a hole in the chassis here in the base unit for the indicators and side lights to run through, so I need to make room for those mushrooms. Where can I reposition this so it's not going to be in trouble? I don't really want to move the fuel pump too far, because right here it's sort of out of the immediate crash structure. The whole front end is a clever crash structure, but this bit is a bit more protected, so it's a kind of safe spot just there, so I'm happy with that being where it is. This I could put, well, pretty much anywhere really, but if I move that down into there, that should be not a problem, I don't think. And it's a bit more hidden as well, keeps the engine bay looking a bit prettier. So I did quickly reconnect it just to double check that, you know, the wires do reach, because otherwise that would have been what a mistake did I make a kind of a situation. And what am I putting this just here. Now, as you can see, this is a lovely pour 15'd area. I did pour 15 the whole lot yonks ago. I can't see my mark now because pour 15 is so blooming tough. Now, no hilarity ensuing because I've not got a wrong drill bit in the wrong box this time. I'll put a little bit of black paint, some Hammerite or something on that, just so it doesn't flash rust into that, and then I'll stick a bolt through it. Right, so that is the coil, now hopefully out of catching fire range from the fuel pump, which I'm going to leave where it is for the time being, just because I don't like making holes in my lovely shiny paint. I've also got these wires which are a bit stray and straggly, kind of a little bit less untidy. I will just cable tie them to something down here to just get them out of the way some more. All good. Less good. Right, what else can we do that doesn't hurt too much? Now, I have got this random trailing cable just here, which is actually a power steering high pressure pipe. I do have a new one which I got from Mark Gray at MGBD yonks ago, actually, when I took a whole lot apart originally, but I've never refitted it or fitted the new one in there, simply because there's no point really, because it's not doing anything. I have, as of today, just started soaking the other end of it up on the steering box in Bulldog, because eventually that's going to have to come out and get changed or binned or something. But while it's in there, it stops dirt getting into the power steering box, because that's far too long of a pipe for anything to creep up. But I will refit the radiator. Now, the thing with putting the radiator in is because it's got all those oil pipes for the transmission at the bottom of it, they're an absolute nightmare to get on and off. The question is, which is easiest to do first? Because putting the fan on is a bit of a faff, and doing those pipes up is a bit of a faff. So which faff do you want to deal with? And foolishly, I have gone and put the fan on because I thought that'd be less of a faff, but now I'm thinking it would have been a better faff to be faffing with the fan afterwards. You know, I remember when I first put this engine and gearbox back in the car, what an absolute pain in the bottom it was to do all of this. Now, I would take the camera off the tripod and show you, but I've now got ATF on my hands. ATF's horrible stuff. Yes, I am using my thumb with a big cut in it, and yes, it does hurt. Oh, that stupid high pressure power steering pipe's on the wrong side of the blooming gearbox pipe now. Damn it. Right, that's now reconnected, thank goodness. So if I do start the car, it's not going to spurt all its fluid across the floor. It will just burn out the clutches inside the automatic, because there's no fluid in it. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of a wrap up here, because this has not been a particularly long video, but we've got a fair bit of tinkering, and it's all fiddly little things, take a long time to do, not very much. But we have done a significant thing, which I thought was going to be a huge hurdle and a big stumbling block. We've now got the crank pulley not moving anywhere at all, which is fantastic. Not got the power steering pump sorted out, but then that's not a major thing. Got the fan back on, got the radiator back in, all connected up, not filled up. And we need to go and get some more petrol for it, obviously, some more coolant for it, obviously. And the big sticking one is, of course, ATFG. I found it online, but it's going to be a few days before it arrives because postage. So yeah, that's where we've now stuck. Hopefully, having now tightened up the gear selector rods, we've actually got a gear selector that will work, and it might just be, I don't know, the brakes are binding because it's been sat around so long, and that's why I can't push it. And if I can get the gearbox to go into gear smoothly, then maybe I can run it up and down the drive enough times to free the brakes off, and then I can push it around in neutral. And I don't know, I'm just clutching at straws here, but I don't want to start adjusting those gear linkages until I've run the car and seen if putting it in neutral and revving it does try and move the car again. But I do not want to turn the car on and put it in gear until I've topped up the ATF, because that's how I killed the gearbox years ago, because I took the radiator out in the dark in a hurry. I'd never owned an automatic before and never worked on one, and so I tried to move the car, and of course it just blew all the transmission fluid out of those open lines and destroyed the gearbox in about a minute. So I don't want to do that again. So until I've got a top off of ATF-G, I'm not going to turn the power on. Also, when I do get the new bottle of ATF, I'm going to drain out the old stuff, just on the off chance anything incorrect has been put in there over the years, because that's bad. Dextron is bad. Fire bad, Dextron bad. Those are the two things you've got to remember. Right, that is, I think, everything for today, because my thumb really, really hurts now. I'm going to have a sandwich instead. Lie down and sleep. And be back with you and this car, hopefully, with it driving very, very soon indeed. If you like this kind of content, please hit like and subscribe. And if you want to be a massive friend to the channel, either share this video on social media or share one of the old ones. But maybe get a few new subscribers, maybe get a few more views. It makes a huge, huge difference to everything we can do on this channel, what I can do on this channel. I can fix stuff more, which is basically what we want to see, isn't it? Anyway, thank you for watching, and see you again soon.